They said I softened the war. They said I made hell look humane. But I only remember the eyes, wide, black, glinting like mirrors catching fire. My camera never lied, not at first. Then one morning an editor asked if the blood could be less red. The next week they asked if I could crop out the child's hand. Soon I was saving the world, one omission at a time. They called me the poet of mercy. I called it protection. Until the day one of my unedited reels leaked, until the day truth looked back at me, raw and screaming. Now when I press the shutter, I hear a child's voice asking, "Was my pain too real for your lens, mister?" Some nights I still see that photo on the front page, the one that ended me, and maybe saved the truth. I was born in Athens, in a house where the balcony shook with traffic and the television recited disasters like prayers. My mother taught literature. My father restored icons. Between them, I learned two loyalties, the sentence and the face. Words could lie, my father warned, but a face tried not to. I became a photojournalist because the shutter felt like a promise. Click, and the world is held to account. Click, and grief is granted a ledger entry. I told my editors I wasn't an artist. I was a courier. I carried other people's pain from the edge of the map to the breakfast table. I traveled light. 2 bodies, 3 primes, 1 lucky charm. A tarnished St. Nicholas medallion taped inside my camera bag. I kept rules. No staging. No coaxing tears. Wait for the breath between screams. Respect the dead. Show their truth, not their humiliation. People called me calm. The truth is, I froze to survive. The viewfinder was a small room with 1 window. If I kept my eye there, nothing could flood me. The first time a child thanked me for taking her picture, I nodded and stepped away. You never accept gratitude for a wound you didn't stop. You just carry it better. That was my creed. When I came home between assignments, my father would polish an icon by the kitchen light and ask, half joking, "And did you bring back any saints?" I'd say, "Only witnesses." He'd shrug, as if to say, that might be the same thing. I believed him, until the day I didn't. It began in Aleppo, or what was left of it. The air there had the color of old film, beige, burnt, and whispering. Every corner smoked. Every alley moaned. Children used spent shell casings as toys. I'd come with a press badge that smelled of airports and optimism, promising to document humanity. The first week, I shot everything raw. Too raw. A woman's arm under concrete, her wedding ring still shining. A boy carrying his brother's half-burnt school bag. Faces, stunned, blank, obscene in their honesty. When I sent those to Athens, my editor called. He cleared his throat the way men do before offering moral advice disguised as marketing. "Andreas, you have a gift," he said. "You make horror poetic. But maybe, just maybe, a little less red. People scroll past blood now. Give them something they can look at." He said it kindly, like a teacher correcting a student's brushstroke. Less red. 2 words that would haunt every pixel I touched afterward. That night, in my hotel room, a flickering bulb, a buzzing fan, and a bottle of water that tasted like rust. I opened Lightroom. I slid the saturation bar down, just a little. The rubble softened. The faces cooled. The world seemed less cruel. It felt merciful. I told myself I was saving viewers from despair, children from nightmares, editors from conscience. I became the middleman of compassion, bleeding truth so it wouldn't stain too much. But mercy, I learned, is addictive. It gives you the rush of God without the burden of Him. Soon I began framing differently, waiting for the light to flatter ruin, for shadows to cloak deformity. I captured beauty among bombs, tragedy with taste. My images spread fast. The aesthetic war, they called it. Critics praised my restraint. Restraint. The word rang like applause. At a conference in Geneva, a journalist I admired said, "You've shown us that humanity endures." I smiled, but something in my chest cracked like old plaster, because I knew what I hadn't shown. The flies, the smell, the way the mother screamed when she saw me still taking pictures. I told myself it was necessary, that people needed hope, that if they saw everything, they'd turn away. It's strange how good intentions start to smell like lies when they get warm enough. The award season came like a fever. Emails, interviews, exhibitions, Athens to Paris to New York. They called my work transcendent. Humanizing conflict, one critic wrote, as if I'd found a way to make blood polite. And maybe I had. Maybe that's why I couldn't stop. In Paris, a curator took my hand and whispered, "You've turned war into light." Light. Not truth. But by then, I didn't notice the difference. At night, in hotel rooms overlooking rivers, I edited by lamp glow. Destruction became choreography. Bodies became brushstrokes. Each image more refined, more distant. Each applause more intoxicating. One night, I found myself drinking alone, staring at my own work projected on a gallery wall. The image was flawless, balanced, lyrical, almost holy, and yet I couldn't remember the sound of the man's voice in it. I'd erased him so thoroughly, he'd become a silhouette of my ambition. Helena entered my life like a question I didn't want to answer. She was all nerve and truth, a photographer who shot on film, who still smelled of darkroom chemicals and cigarette smoke. We met in Sarajevo, in a half-bombed cafe with plastic over the windows. "You must be Andreas the Merciful," she said. Her tone was soft, but her eyes weren't. We stayed up all night under a leaking roof, trading stories. "Do you ever feel you're stealing?" she asked. "From who?" "From the dead," she said quietly. I kissed her then, as if silence could make that question disappear. When I woke, she was gone. Her camera strap hung beside mine. I kept it, not as love, but as proof that someone had once looked at me and seen through the myth. Weeks later, I took the photograph that made me immortal and ruined. A man before a burning hospital holding a wilted flag. It looked like courage, but the frame was cropped. His daughter's tiny, tear-streaked face just outside it. That photograph won the European Press Freedom Award. Irony has a sense of humor crueler than war. When I stood on stage, lights like bullets in my eyes, I thanked truth, the one I'd abandoned miles ago. Applause roared like artillery. That night, a publisher offered me a book deal. Mercy Through the Lens. I laughed until I almost vomited. Then I said yes, because every sin is easier when it looks good in print. The collapse didn't begin with an explosion. It began with an email. Subject line: unedited footage. Explain. Attached were my raw files from Aleppo. Someone had leaked them. Every untouched frame, every scream, every body, every truth I'd buried beneath filters and light. Within hours, they were everywhere. News feeds, forums, hashtags, photographic deception, compassion fraud. Saint of mercy turns censor of horror. The comments came fast, sharp, biblical. He made beauty out of murder. He edited the truth. He betrayed the dead. And they were right. I sat in my studio in Athens. The walls were covered with framed awards, now looking like tombstones. The screens glowed with faces I'd once softened, now raw, unfiltered, furious. That night, I dreamed of that girl again, the one whose hand I'd cropped out. She stood in front of me, holding her missing fingers like flowers. "You made me disappear," she said. "No," I whispered. I made you bearable. For who? I woke up, gasping, the room drenched in silence. My publisher canceled the book. The foundation rescinded the award. My editor claimed ignorance. No one defended me. Helena called once. "They're crucifying you," she said. "Maybe I deserve it. Maybe we all do." Her voice broke, not out of pity, but recognition. She hung up before I could say her name. I tried to work again, went to Lesbos, where refugees washed ashore with nothing but plastic bags and prayers. I lifted my camera, and the lens fogged. Every face was a ghost I'd edited once. Every click sounded like a confession I hadn't made. So I stopped. For months I drifted between towns, taking pictures of walls, light, and silence. But even silence remembers. I went home, not to Athens, but to the village where my father was buried. The sea hummed like an old hymn. Truth didn't need headlines there. One fisherman whispered, "The one who edited war." I didn't argue. My mother didn't speak to me at first. Then one evening, she placed an icon of St. Nicholas on the table, the same one I'd once taped inside my camera bag. "You tried to repaint the world," she said, "but even God lets the blood stay red." Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. The kind of tired that comes after faith runs out of words. For weeks I sat by the shore, photographing nothing. Light on water, birds over ruins. Everything looked too peaceful to be honest. Then a boy from the village found my old photo book in the church library, the first edition, before they pulled it. He pointed at a picture and said, "It's beautiful, mister." And I didn't know whether to thank him or apologize. That night, I opened the hidden hard drive. All the ghosts were there. The raw files, the edited ones, the lost truth. I began restoring them, not to exhibit, not to sell, just to see them again. Each image felt like pulling glass from a wound. Each face returned like an unanswered prayer. For the first time, I let the red return. By dawn, my desk was covered in prints, raw, trembling, unclean. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to faith. Not forgiveness, recognition. I never published the restored photographs. I printed them, stacked them in a wooden crate, and left them in the chapel where my father once prayed over cracked icons. No captions, no names, just truth, naked and waiting. A month later, a journalist from Thessaloniki called. "Someone left photographs in a church by the sea," he said. "No watermark, no metadata. They're different. They hurt." I told him nothing. Let silence do what words never could. The images spread again, anonymously. But this time the world didn't look away. Teachers used them in classrooms. Aid workers printed them on posters. People cried, not because they were beautiful, but because they were unbearable. And I realized, truth sometimes needs to be freed from its author. Now, I walk with an old analog camera. I photograph ordinary things. My mother's hands kneading bread, fishermen at dawn, stray cats stretching in sunlight. Each frame feels like a small act of contrition. I teach now, a small class in Athens, the ethics of seeing. My students are young, pure, ambitious. On the first day, I write, "Mercy without truth is vanity." They don't understand yet. They will. Sometimes they ask, "Do you still believe photographs can change the world?" I tell them they can remind it, but only if we let them hurt. Before class ends, I show them two pictures. The cropped one, the man and the burning hospital. And then the unedited one, his daughter, her face streaked with ash. Silence always follows. The right kind of silence, the kind that sees. At night, I pass kiosks glowing with glossy covers. So much color, so much polish. The world hasn't changed, but I have. Now, when I see a child's eyes in a photo, I don't wonder if it's too painful to show. I wonder if it's painful enough to remember. Truth, after all, isn't mercy. It's memory refusing to fade. And I live inside that memory, not forgiven, not forgotten, just a man learning to carry the light without softening it. Because every sin begins with a reason that sounds like love, and every redemption begins the moment you stop explaining it.